Meeting of October 7th, 2020 to order at 7 p.m. If you join me in pledging the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland.
Here.
Tom Baylor.
Here.
Kathy Sherman. Jeff Gard.
Here.
Melina Meyer.
Here.
Ann Schaefer.
Here.
David Allison.
Here.
David Gleason.
I'm here.
That's a quorum of council.
Are there any proposed modifications to the regular agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications that the council would like to declare?
Mr. Mayor, this is Mona.
Vice Mayor Meyer.
I would like to recuse myself from items 6 and 7. I'm related to a couple of the owners of Cordova Construction. And then for item 6, I'm not related to them, but they could possibly help them with something. I don't really know all the details, but just to prevent anything that could come up in the future, I'd like to recuse myself from both.
Okay, I'll declare a conflict for both of those and just remind council that you can appeal the mayor's decision if you don't feel it's a conflict. Is there any other conflicts of interest or ex parte communications for council to declare? Okay, hearing none. Communications by and petitions from visitors, guest speakers, incident management team. I believe we have Dr. Sanders online.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Hannah Sanders. So as everyone knows, we have identified a fourth COVID-19 case that has occurred over the last week. This has prompted the medical response team as well as incident command to change the community alert to level 3. They're previously at a level 2. The change in the level is not intended to be a cause of alarm. We just want to encourage the community members to proceed with caution and make sure that we're protecting the vulnerable and fragile people in our population. At this time, we haven't identified a specific spreading event that we want people to be concerned. It is more just a combination of behaviors and close contacts with these 4 that have us concerned, but again, they're not necessarily related, and there's not a specific spreading event. So I don't have it. Well, I guess I'll add our testing capacity, our hospital capacity, and the state's contact tracing is all intact, and we don't have any concerns in terms of the hospital preparation right now. So with that, I'm here for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Sanders. I just open it for any questions for council.
Councilman Schaefer?
Councilman Schaefer.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Dr. Sanders. So are all 4 of the cases connected to each other? Can you tell, are you?
Not necessarily, no. They have come up with some of it's kind of loose contact tracing. We do feel that there could be some connection and that this is community spread, but this is not directly all related to one small cluster.
So you're saying it's more of a community spread situation?
Yeah, so at this point we have 3 new cases that have come up that are not from people that have had travel or that have kind of certain defined contact lines. Cordova is a small community, obviously, as we all know. The degrees of separation between several people is relatively small, so these aren't directly, it's not like this is one household that we've identified.
Okay, and then can you just clarify what it means to the community that it has changed from level 2 to level 3.
So the level 2 is we're operating in the middle of a pandemic, but we don't have any cases in our community over the last 14 days and don't have any concerns for risk. Level 3 is that next phase where we say we are seeing some cases, we know that the cases are here in Cordova, and we want everybody to be cautious, but we aren't identifying specific places or large clusters or larger outbreaks that have us concerned. We also have an intact testing and contact tracing capacity and have hospital capacity. So one thing to remember when we started, when this all started last winter and in spring, particularly in March and April, we were really concerned with hospital capacity and the bed capacity. On average years, hospitals operate at full capacity. They don't have that extra room. So we do want to continue to be mindful of that because COVID is new and it does bring about an increased number of hospitalizations. So we're going to continue to be mindful of our bed capacity. Normally, the public isn't watching bed capacity. So as you watch the beds as they go up in those numbers, in healthcare, the numbers that we're seeing aren't in terms of the hospital bed capacity. Those aren't concerning to me to see half the beds in Anchorage utilized. That would be considered a very average, in fact, maybe even lower than a normal year at this time. So right now our bed capacity is really looking good, but we want to make sure that we don't overwhelm hospitals as we go into the winter.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Council?
This is Councilmember Meyer.
Vice Mayor Meyer?
I don't know if this is information that you can give or not, but were these new cases kind of a routine screening or symptoms related? Should people be concerned or not concerned, I don't know if that's the right word, but just was it routine screening or symptom related?
So, and with all of this, we operate on the minimum information needed, not only for the community, but even for myself. So I don't always know all of the details either. I know that the cases have been identified in a combination of screening and contact tracing and symptoms. So I think that we are kind of seeing all testing options and are picking up cases in all categories.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions, Council? And then just to confirm, Dr. Sanders, what's the current active count?
Our current active in Cordova count is actually 3. One of the cases that we identified here in Cordova is still active, but is not here.
Okay, thank you. I just heard a lot of rumors circulating in the community, so I wanted to, of numbers far in excess of that, so I just wanted to clarify that again for the record. Any more questions, Council?
Yeah, this is Councilman Baylor.
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, more of a comment than a question. You know, since January, my wife and I have done actually quite a bit of traveling. 4 trips to Seattle, 2 trips to Michigan, down to Yakutat, to Anchorage. And it got to me thinking about some of my other family members and just immediate family and sister-in-laws and kids. There's about 100 of us. Nobody I know has had this COVID-19. It kind of leads me to think of what behaviors get us in contact with this. Because clearly, to me, traveling doesn't do it if you're wearing your mask and cleaning your hands and other things. So I'm not sure how these cases are popping up or where they're spreading, but I guess I'm just not seeing it in most of the circles that I travel in. So thank you.
So just to add to that, one of the things that we do expect to see as we go into winter and people are in closer quarters indoors when we gather indoors there is an increased chance for spread, and it does make it much easier for respiratory illnesses to spread. That's why we are used to the kind of idea of having winter colds, particularly if you have kids. Winter colds do circulate, and we see flu during the same season. So we do expect for that viral transmission of COVID and any other respiratory illness to increase when we are all in close quarters. So those are the behaviors. If you live in a household or close to elderly or fragile member of our community, we really want you to be extra cautious in your behaviors. But masking and hand washing when you're out with non-household members will really help protect those that are, well, our whole community, but particularly those that are more vulnerable. I think one other thing, just thinking of your travel, that we want to make sure that we're considering, we want to keep our schools open, we want to keep people active, and so the more that we all practice and help this not spread and not get into schools, the better able the schools will be able to stay open and continue educating our kids, which is just a huge priority. I felt very proud of Cordova for being able to stay open and get our kids educated right now in classrooms, even if it is at a reduced schedule. I think that we're really benefiting our kids right now, being able to have them in class. So I hope everybody can band together and keep our community moving forward open.
Other questions, Council? Thank you, Dr. Sanders, for calling in and for the update and guidance. Really appreciate your efforts on all levels, and including participation in the City Council meetings. Manager Howard.
Thank you.
You bet. Anything else on the incident management side, Helen?
No, I think you all know that our airport testing has stopped, and we are now doing testing at both Elanca and CCMC. So I just want to reiterate that going into the winter season, we're still have ambassadors at the airport greeting passengers to help them with understanding what our local rules are, as well as the state travel rules. All of our facilities are open and ready for visitors, and we've put a lot of mitigation practices in place. So I think the community should be very comfortable coming to the library, to the museum, to our various recreational facilities, the pool and Bidarki, and I hope that people will feel comfortable, again, practicing the required COVID precautions. We can safely participate in our community.
Okay, audience comments. I'd remind the public that you can call in on the call-in number, which is 253-6202, and we're manning those phones. So that number again is 253-6202 for comments regarding agenda items. And seeing no active calls, chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions, school board.
This is Hannah Sanders. I could give a quick hospital report.
Please.
So the hospital, of course, we've continued the COVID preparation. We're doing really well. We've received most of the equipment, including 2 new Zoll ventilators that we're excited to have, which brings our current number to 3 at the hospital. The hospital, we did just complete our audit for 2019 and are working on our cost report and rebasing, which is a time that we get to have our Medicare payment, our reimbursements adjusted. So we are looking forward to this, as we think it's going to help the hospital and help our ability to be solvent over the next year or two. It does look like the COVID funding is also helping us to dig out from some of the debt that we've been previously in, and at this point we are looking forward to finding out those numbers and kind of seeing what next year is going to hold for us. We have had the opportunity to improve some of our service lines and start working to to see how we can develop more robust drug and alcohol rehab for our communities. So that's what we've been working on, and thank you all for your support.
Are there any questions, council? Okay, hearing none. And did we have anyone online for school board? Okay, and we still haven't had any calls for audience comments on agenda items. Did we just have someone join us for a school board report? Okay. Move on to, we have a Prince William Sound Regional Citizens Advisory Council report in the packet on page 1.
I don't think,
Okay. We don't have a call in online for that?
I do not believe so.
Okay, thank you. So just direct counsel to that written report and appreciate that from our representative, Robert Beadle. So we don't have a student council representative at this time, and we'll go to the consent calendar. Would any council like to remove that for discussion or debate? Okay, hearing none, roll call.
David Allison,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
David Gleason.
Yes.
The consent calendar is approved.
Okay, the first consideration of bids was for directing the manager to negotiate with Facility Contractors, LLC for shipyard restroom building per request for proposal number PW 20-05. And just a reminder that Councilman Meyer had declared a conflict on this item.
I move to direct the city manager to negotiate a contract with Facility Contractors, LLC, to construct shipyard restrooms per engineered drawings for a sum not to exceed $231,000.
Second.
Moved Schaefer, second Baylor. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councilman Schaefer?
We're getting the funding. It's part of our COVID CARES funding. It'll provide hand washing and restrooms out at that shipyard area. So, yeah, let's get it done within the time frame.
And to your second, Councilman Baylor.
Oh, I think same comments I had before. I think staff is well aware of those, but I'll make them again for the record for all of these contracts, that we're making sure we're using licensed contractors and that we are getting a good inspection on the work. Thanks to staff for bringing this up.
And discussion in order, Councilman Sherman.
No, I agree with the motion.
Councilman Allison.
Yeah, no further questions from me. Appreciate the willingness of contractors to get out there, and agree with Councilmember Baylor on the making sure we're using licenses and inspection. So anyway, thank you.
Councilman Guard.
No comments. I agree with all the comments before.
Councilman Gleason.
I agree with the motion and previous comments.
Okay, roll call vote. Les Councilman Meyer.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Jeff Guard,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
David Gleason.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, the next consideration of bid is for direction to the manager to negotiate with Cordova Construction, LLC, for ambulance bay improvements per request for proposals PW 20-06. And Councilman Meyer had also declared a conflict on this item.
I move to direct city manager to negotiate a contract with Cordova Construction LLC to provide all labor and materials for ambulance bay upgrades for a sum not to exceed $34,555.
Second.
Have motion Schaefer, second Baylor. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councilman Schaefer?
Again, this is coming from the COVID CARES funding. I guess my only question is the memo or describing the upgrades are pretty general, so could you describe a little more or give a little more description about what this will be going to exactly?
I'm going to defer to Paul Tremblay.
Push and hold the red on the bottom.
We're getting mic'd up, Councilman Schaefer.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Can you hold it close? I think it was.
Hello?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. So some of the renovations will be removing a wall that separates the mechanical room, maintenance room to the ambulance bay. That'll open up about 15 more square feet in the facility. Also removing some countertops and creating additional cubbies to hold equipment, which would also kind of give us more space on the floor for our medics to be able to move around and keep safe and decon their equipment when they come back.
Okay, thank you.
And to your second, Councilman Baylor.
I support it. Same concerns as before, licensed contractors and inspection.
Okay, and Vice Mayor Meyer is conflicted. Councilman Allison.
Yeah, no comment. Thank you.
Councilman Sherman.
No, I'm in support, and I agree with all the comments made previously.
Councilman Gleason.
I'm in support.
And Councilman Guard.
I'm also in support. I just had one quick dumb question though. Since this is hospital facilities, the reasoning behind using city money instead of hospital money for this is?
So, Councilman Guard, this is actually the ambulance bay that's in the EMS, the public safety building. It's the city public safety building.
Okay, I retract my dumb question.
It's all right. It's good clarification. Okay, roll call vote, please.
David Gleason.
Yes.
Tom Baylor.
Yes.
Jeff Guard.
Yes.
David Allison.
Yes.
Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
Kathy Sherman.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
The next consideration of bids is for direction to the manager to negotiate with Yukon Equipment Incorporated for 3 Wacker G70 generators and 3 automatic transfer switches.
Can we have a staff report first?
With no objection, a staff report. Manager Howarth.
Sam, just to make the motion more clear.
Oh, right, yeah. So I'm going to defer to Sam Greenwood.
Okay. So we spent about 3 hours in the conference room yesterday talking about this project, and we feel that we need to reduce it down to 1 generator and 1 site in order to meet the deadlines and make sure it all happens. So I would like to change the amount to, did I not put the total? A third, right? 5,300 or 53,000 for the 1 generator, 5,000 for freight, and 5,000 for the switch. So 73,000 total for the contract. We decided that because of the timeframes to get it here, we can do a lot of prep work prior to that generator getting here, but to do prep work for 3 sites and to do everything, we're just not comfortable to make that. So that is the reason to change the amount.
Okay, Okay, so council, staff is recommending, once this motion comes to the floor, a amendment to $73,000 for one generator.
Well, just make the motion that way.
Not to
Can we clarify the amount?
Or you can make the motion that way since we don't have a motion on the floor.
Is it 53 plus 10?
It's
63. Yeah.
63,000 plus 5,000 plus 5,000. Would it be 63,000?
It is 63.
Sorry.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
That's okay.
So maybe somebody can make that motion now instead of amending.
Yeah, so if council wants to make a motion, it would be, the staff recommendation is to direct the manager to negotiate with Yukon Equipment Incorporated for one Wacker G70 generator and automatic transfer switch for $73,000.
63.
Sorry, 63,000.
Do I move
So moved.
the manager to negotiate?
So moved.
Yeah, so moved. Second.
Okay, moved guard, second Schaefer. And since it was stated, the motion was stated, that works. So to your motion, Councilman Garden.
Yeah, it's a project that looks like we ought to go ahead with, and if staff is uncomfortable with doing 3 times the workload, we should go with the workload they're comfortable with, so, yes.
And to your second, Councilman Schaefer.
Yeah, I guess if we're going from 3 to 1, which site will you prioritize for the generator and the switch?
The Mills Reservoir site, or so the Mills treatment plant on Whiteshed Road, it's the best, easiest access, easiest place to get something in there and rolling.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I'm in support of this.
Okay, and then discussion in order, Councilman Gleason.
Yeah, I'm in support.
Councilman Baylor.
What are the issues that we will not be able to do the other 2 sites? Other than time frame, what's
Part of it is
scope of work?
part of it is access. So the EAC lift station is located off of Chase, down an undeveloped road, down an undeveloped alley onto the lake, near the lake. And there's some issues with just state land and city land and getting equipment down there and getting that thing placed down there that I don't feel like we can incorporate with the other 2 sites. The other one is Orca Water Treatment Plant. And if y'all been there, it's on a very steep hill. These things would be occurring in late November. There has to be some rock work, and it's just too much to do in the time frame that we have.
Okay, if I may, I guess the way I'm looking at this is I guess I would call it free money, right? This is COVID money. If we can take advantage of it and get these generators if they're needed, that would be outstanding. Let me just ask the mayor this, since he runs the electric company. Is it even feasible or possibility to set these generators down remote from that site and run a power cord line to it? So technically we are set up, and then at another point in time get them moved closer to where they should be. In other words, can we get these things operational to meet our funding needs and then do the rest of the hookup later?
So I think for the lift station at EAC, that 14-foot right-of-way is used for a snow dump. So they push snow down there, so that would be an issue, and there's private property all the way on both sides. We only have a small easement at the Orca Water Treatment Plant, so we would have to, I'm not sure where we could put it. We'd have to negotiate with private property for that.
Well, I guess this, and again, Sam or Mayor Copeland, since you run an electric company, is this even something that's feasible, if some of the details can be worked out? Is it too far-fetched, or is it something that maybe we don't pay tonight, but we kind of take a look at this and possibly bring it in the next meeting if it was feasible?
So the time frame for shipping is 6 weeks for the generator and 8 weeks for the transfer switch. We believe, we've talked with an electrician and a generator expert on getting all the prep work done and everything done prior to it coming in. So that if we were to have to, okay, so we can't wait for another meeting to order, because then we're going to be well past the time frame. I mean, the 8 weeks is really pushing our time frame. We're counting that the electrician and generator guy can get everything done in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, or about 2 weeks once the ATS switch is here.
Okay. Well, I don't mean to back you in the corner and keep hammering this point, but we, as a council, we could okay this full amount. If you took a look at a couple more options, like I suggested, even if it was the realm of possibility, you could move forward with it. If it wasn't, you wouldn't spend this money. But I'm just trying to figure out a way that we don't lose this funding for generators, and it has to come out of taxpayer money sometime later. So if it's not feasible, then I'm good with that. But if there's an outside chance, I would suggest that we approve the whole $177,000.
Manager Howarth?
One of the things that we're running into as we close in on December deadline is that we are starting to have more requests or perhaps even more allocation of these resources than we have in full. There is no question we're going to be able to fully expend these on projects that you as council and the community have identified as being of importance. So I just want to reassure everyone that there is no question that we will fully expend the $3.4+ million that we've been allocated, and could probably spend $1 million more if we could. That said, there's some indication that there probably will be more funds coming towards municipal governments nationwide through future CARES distributions that will come from the feds. So my hope is that there will be resources available for projects that we've identified as being important, that we, for reasons of timing really is what it's all about, just have not been able to get on the table. So I don't want anyone to feel like we aren't able to get things done. And we're really, like Sam said, looking at things that we can reasonably get on the ground without killing all of us off in the process, because we're working our little tails off trying to get them done. So appreciate everyone's concerns about that. And I don't think that we'll be leaving money on the table. There'll be many other good projects that we're going to try to get on the ground before the 30th of December.
Okay, thank you. That was all my comment.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Meyer?
No comments or questions. Thank you.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, no questions for me. Thank you.
Councilman Sherman?
Yeah, not to beleaguer the point, but just so I understand, as Mr. Baylor said, I'm not quite sure how the CARES funding works. I guess I would defer to Manager Howard, but we can't order the hardware that we need, and they have to absolutely be installed as well.
To Manager Howarth?
Yes, the way that the CARES funding was awarded, it basically says that the funds have to be expended on projects that will help with the immediate emergency. So you have to have it on the ground, and it has to be deployed to mitigate the COVID emergency in our communities. We've been allowed to broadly interpret that, so you know, everything from recreational activities to water quality to any number of other things, restroom facilities, we are allowed to say that those are things that our community needs to keep us safe from COVID, that will help our community survive the pandemic. But if we don't have them operational, then the state and the feds are basically saying, because you didn't need them to deal with the pandemic during the 2020 year, you didn't use them to mitigate, we will not allow those to be authorized expenses.
Okay, thank you, Helen. That answers my question.
Any further questions, council? Okay, roll call vote, please. I'm just going to repeat that motion since it's different than the agenda. To direct the manager to negotiate with Yukon Equipment Incorporated for one Wacker G70 generator and automatic transfer switch for $63,000.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Jeff Gard,
Yes.
and David Gleason.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, council, mayor's report. I'm a little behind on correspondence, particularly regarding the post office. I have had a few questions over the last, well, several questions over the last few weeks about the potential for declaring a city council resolution of an emergency for the seine season. Earlier, you'd passed a resolution regarding the earlier season gillnet fisheries, but now that the seine season is pretty much wrapped up, it looks like it's going to easily meet the thresholds to trigger a disaster declaration. So lobbyist Bitney has been working with legislative leadership to position for a tier 1 as a grant for the harbor. As I'd mentioned, that's kind of going to have to wait until the budget process, just because of the way the legislative leadership is organizing for the next session. And just like to remind council that we'll have a Coast Guard, U.S. Coast Guard City Declaration celebration this Friday at 6 o'clock at City Hall. That'll be upstairs, and we'll be following fairly strict protocols, 10 people or less for the Coast Guard and Senator Sullivan, and they'll be under the awning, so forth, but we'll have the open area for public participation there on the upper level of the City Hall. And then afterwards, we'll have again a kind of limited by Coast Guard and pandemic restrictions to a group no larger than 10, but we'll be meeting with Senator Sullivan and Coast Guard staff afterwards here in City Hall. And then helping Senator Sullivan's staff arrange some meetings with our fisheries groups, the tribe, and others through Saturday. And then he'll be done with his official duties. There is that debate at 5 p.m. On Saturday afternoon with Al Gross, who's in Kodiak, regarding fisheries. So we'll see if we can't circulate a link for that. I believe that's going to be hosted online, so it'll be accessible to the public. And then he'll kind of transition to campaign and non-official engagement with the community Saturday evening and Sunday morning. So that's about all I had now, unless there's any questions.
This is Councilman Schaefer.
Councilman Schaefer.
Yeah, do you have dates or times or locations for when Senator Sullivan will be doing public events, like campaign events?
Yeah, we'll get those circulated. In fact, his staff emailed just right as we were starting the meeting tonight, so we're kind of getting those time slots filled in, and we'll get those circulated to council.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mayor, this is Councilman Baylor.
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, on a different subject, on the COVID thing, I think we would all agree that the Camrys as a group did an outstanding job and are still doing an outstanding job. So I think maybe a letter of appreciation at some point from the mayor and council would be appropriate to reinforce that and their continued diligence, with this COVID-19 thing. So now that the season's starting to wrap up, I just thought maybe I'd throw that on your plate as a thought that we could maybe do. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Baylor. They had contacted us to see if there was any way that the city might be able to use CARES Act funding or anything to help them. They took a significant financial hit for their extra expenses through the year, and then had a poor processing season. So, yeah, they had a pretty tough year. So, they did go to extraordinary efforts on the community's behalf to protect us. So, I'll work with Manager Howarth on that.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Garden.
Yeah, just a quick question. Have you got anything back from our lobbyist Bettany on the letter to the governor's office on the ferries?
We haven't had a response back that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Okay, if no further questions, clerk's report, city manager's report.
There's a written report in the packet, but I did want to provide a couple of updates, information that came through after this was written. Number one, back to our harbor, we did submit a build grant last year. This past year for the $25 million. We did not get the grant. I think we have realized that the build grant may not be the appropriate venue for our request for our type of project. So we'll be doing some research on other alternative funding sources. My understanding is that the state has prioritized a $5 million request for our harbor, which we have been collecting resources from users to help with match. And whether or not it's in the governor's budget and makes it through the legislative session is the big question. So we'll keep you posted on that. Cordova cash cards, we've had a really terrific response to the application process on the part of both businesses and individuals in town. We now have about 1,800 individual unique human beings in Cordova who've applied for those Cordova cash cards, and around 60 businesses. The deadline is a week from Friday. We just dropped some postcards into mailboxes and hope that everyone in the community will feel that they can apply for these cards. And again, the focus is on the business community, making sure that people are spending money locally. So I, again, encourage everyone to apply for those Cordova cash cards and businesses to participate. And the only other thing I want to share is that there was a question about our audit. Our auditors are not able to provide a complete audit until the very end of this month. The delay is not city, but the auditors themselves. So as soon as that document's available, it will be made available to you.
Any questions, council?
Yeah, this is Selena.
Melina.
One question that I've been getting on the cash cards is some people have been filling out the applications, but they're curious how they know that it's been received, or how the response back from the city, when that's going to be expected, to make sure that they filled it out okay.
So the online application, actually, when you push the submit button, it says your application has been successfully submitted. So some people may not see that, or maybe don't totally understand or believe it, but I promise you that if you hit submit and it doesn't go through, you wouldn't get that messaging. We are, for those that mail in applications, we are getting emails and other things. We're still processing, and I've noted that there are members of the community that have applied more than one time, I think probably for the reason they just want to make sure that the application is getting in. hopefully those folks who apply online are getting those messages, a submission message from the website.
Okay, thanks.
And do you mind if I say Harmony's right here and she said they can call 6200 and ask. She's got a large spreadsheet going and she can quickly and easily find their name.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's actually what I directed when I heard that. I said, I think it's once you hit submit, it's submitted, but call the city. So thanks.
Other questions for City Manager? Hearing none, clerk's report.
I also have a written report in the packet, which I can answer any of those questions. Pretty pictures in there. And also, I send a lot of emails to you guys when I get things that I think are valuable, obviously, for you to have. Often those will make packets. Most recently, though, there's the $50 million that Alaska fishermen got in CARES Act funding, which is open for public comment because they came up with the spend plan on that. ADF&G did. And public comment ends before our next meeting. So today I happen to have sent you first the UFA, email that had a link to it. But then today I sent from Southeast Alaska Fishermen's Union or something, because they described it in more lay terms, which was a lot more clear. So if council or anybody listening has comments on the way it's going to be spent, because it's not completely easy for me to explain to you, you'd have to read one of these. It's good for you to look it up, read it, and decide if you want to make a comment. Only because I know that the 2016 plan that ADF&G came up with for the pink salmon disaster obviously wasn't great and had a lot of complaints afterwards, and this one they had to put together pretty quickly. So let's hope it's okay, but the comment period is until the 19th if you want to make a comment. That's all I have.
Any questions, council?
This is Councilman Schaefer.
Councilman Schaefer, you're very quiet.
Oh, is this better?
Much better.
Sorry. Yeah, I just had a question about voting. So if we requested, or if people requested absentee ballot from the state, is there a drop box here in the city that they can deliver it to instead of mailing it back?
There is not. We do have our new drop box, and I was afraid to start calling it the ballot drop box yet. So we're kind of not calling it that yet because it's really for the city election. I did offer the state that it could be a drop box location, but they did not. They declined my request or my offer. If anybody wants to drop it off at my office, though, I will accept them. We mailed one in today, and I will express mail them in if people bring them to me. And the state gave me their express mail number to use, so it's not going to cost the city anything, and maybe people would feel safer getting the ballots in that way. Also, starting on the 19th, when they're doing absentee in person here, you can hand those in here to the election official upstairs doing the absentee in person for the state.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for the clerk? Hearing none, we have correspondence from Senator Murkowski regarding the USPS. Any council comments?
Yeah, Councilman Baylor.
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, it's nice. There's some new information there that she's sponsoring some bills or helping out, so that's good news. But I think still the issue remains here with our local post office with this deplorable conditions inside and outside. And I think it's actually an unhealthy place to be. The sneeze guards that were put up, sheets of vinyl, were actually put up by employees, and they got reprimanded for taking that initiative. And as we all have spoken before, this place is really a mess. Those countertop broken vinyl or broken P-lam on there that's unsanitary, quite frankly, and it's even worse on the employee side. So I always said you should choose your battles, and I think the battle we should have taken is Lisa Murkowski was the condition of this post office down here. So I hope we can still find a way to pressure them to do something about the conditions here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Baylor. And that was the delinquent correspondence that I had on my list to get out. So that's a good idea, though, copying it to our congressional delegation. Other comments on correspondence, Council? Hearing none, we don't have ordinances, resolutions on this agenda. Again, it was mostly for CARES Act funding that we had this meeting. No unfinished business. We do have the, under new and miscellaneous business, the discussion of COVID-19 emergency response on the agenda for council discussion. And maybe I'll just go ahead and go through council in order here. Any COVID-19 discussion, Councilman Allison?
No, nothing from me at this time. Thank you.
Councilman Sherman?
No questions. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Meyer?
No, I think we covered a lot on the topic already. Thanks.
Councilman Baylor?
Yes, where do you find these schedules for testing, both at Alaka and at the hospital?
I went online to the city homepage, and it still has a COVID-19 link on top. And if you look down below, there's resources. There's 6 little boxes there, and there's local resources. And if you follow that tab on the right-hand side down below, it has, I think, the second link down there. It has the testing information, and you click on that, and it pulls up the current schedule.
Thank you.
I want to say Mondays, Fridays, 9 to 10 at CCMC, and Tuesdays, Thursdays, 2 to 3 NVE. But yeah, it is on that website. A little bit of looking, but you learn other things while you're doing that. So, COVID-19 discussion, Councilman Gard.
None at this time.
Councilman Schaefer.
No, I don't have anything more.
Councilman Gleason.
I just got a question for Helen. I was talking with Paul Trumbley today, and he said that that fire department, their hub building out there at 4.5 miles, in tough shape, and I didn't know if we could use some of the CARES Act or COVID funding to fix that up, since they're first responders. So that's all I got.
I think at this point, we're probably past our ability to get that type of project on the books and done, and we'll just cross our fingers for more funding that will appear miraculously in January for us to deploy in different ways.
Okay, move on to discussion of 2021 budget schedule and timeline and process. Did you want to open on that, Councilman Howard, or I mean Manager Howarth, or just council discussion?
I can just give an overview. I know there was concern about the amount of time that we have to get our budget prepared and then in front of council and go through a public process. We are committed, of course, to the public process, and I think by charter we are required to have a budget prepared 5 weeks before it's passed. So this calendar will certainly accommodate that requirement and then some. We have some work sessions. The sticky wicket for all of us on staff is getting information that's as accurate as possible that can inform the budget that we're presenting to you, and that includes raw fish tax numbers. It includes, a better estimate of how we're doing with sales tax receipts and other things. So work right now is really focused on, Ken is working with department heads and getting real good detail on the types of budgets that they want to put forward, the numbers. We do have an increase in staff costs due to the collective bargaining agreement that we signed last year, so we're getting those numbers populated into the budget. When we meet for our first budget work session, we'll be talking in broad terms about the types of issues that we'll be looking at for next year, whether it's on the positive or the negative side. And we'll give you as council the opportunity to give us direction as staff on how we want to proceed on where you might want us to make adjustments. So I think this schedule gives us ample opportunity to get the information we need from you, make sure that our numbers are accurate, and provide the public an opportunity to respond. So by all means, let me know if you feel that this is needs some adjustments, and we'll see what we can do.
Any comments, council? Okay, we've got the calendar lined out there. Pending agenda, capital improvement lists, calendar, and elected and appointed officials list.
Mr. Mayor, it's Councilman Gleason. I have a pending agenda item, if that can be allowed.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's been a long time since we've had an update on NVE and where they're at with where we're at in the acquisition of CCMC thing. So it just would be nice to get an update. I don't know if we can invite Bert to come to the next meeting.
Councilman Gleason, I think your ears were tingling. I'm going to pass that to Manager Howarth.
Bert with NVE is scheduled for your next council meeting to give an update.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And it saved as a pending agenda item.
Woohoo! I do have one item, though. On the 14th, the insurance work session that we had been talking about, we've now heard that there is an opportunity for Clark Cripps, yes, from Hub, to give a talk to council, and there's an opportunity for us to have it be called like a training, and APEI gives back 2% of the cost of our policy if all 7 council members are in attendance for the training, and Clark is able to do the training, and he will be in Cordova. So it's a 1-hour work session. And the thing is that the Harbor Commission is using this room at that time, but it can be partially by Zoom, I think he said. I don't know how I'm going to advertise it as of yet. So we were looking for maybe a different time during the day. He couldn't do noon, but maybe we could do something 3 or 4, 2 or 3 or 4 in the afternoon if you wanted to be here in person. If I don't know how I could do it otherwise on a different time frame without it being open to the public. But I'm going to need a commitment of all 7 of you, or I guess it's not worth any of us being there, kind of, because it's about saving money.
Any conflicts? That's October 14th, Council?
Can I try and do it during the day? I think he had something noon to 1. He's doing the school district. Can I try for 2 o'clock? Would you guys be able to commit to an hour at 2 o'clock on the 14th?
I'm good.
Is that a Wednesday, Susan?
It is a
Yes.
Wednesday.
Not particularly good.
Okay. And I know for people who have jobs, it's probably not particularly good either, right? Day jobs.
Morning.
Is earlier better? 10 in the morning, or 9?
What's a fiscal note
I
on?
can make any time work that day. This is Councilman Schaefer.
Okay, you could. Councilman Baylor, you have a project going that any daytime hours is not going to be good for you?
Let me just pull up the calendar. You said the 14th, and I'll get back to you here quickly.
Correct, the 14th.
Hey, Susan, this is Allison.
Yes.
Yeah, I may be traveling, but I should be with my headphones on.
Okay. And Sherman, you may also be traveling?
It's up in the air right now, but I should probably be here on the 14th.
Okay.
And any time works for me.
Okay. I will stop wasting everybody's time with this and hear back from you all. Maybe everybody, I'll send an email again tomorrow with a reminder and we'll pick a time.
How long did you say the training would be?
1 hour.
Class?
1 hour.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else for pending agenda, Council? Okay, let me find my place back here on the agenda. Again, audience participation, you can call the call-in number at 253-6202. The number is 253-6202 for audience participation. So the CIP list,
It isn't usually due till December again, just
Yeah.
before the session starts. I'm just going to put it in there all the time now.
yeah, I think that's great. So just be thinking about that, Council. Any modifications to that? We usually get that out just before the legislative session starts so we can have a fresh copy in front of them. Again, that call-in number for audience participation is 253-6202. And we'll move on to council comments until we get a call. Susan.
Sorry, one more thing. I should have said this at my report, but it also works for elected and appointed officials list. November is the turnover time on boards and commissions, and you can look in the packet to see which seats are coming open. And it's a little different process that we started last year, so it's right on the city website. You can find an application to fill out, and it's a fillable PDF. And the more people that get their names in, the better. And then you guys have choices, and we'll try and do those appointments in December. So council members want to talk it up to friends and neighbors who are interested in giving of their time to the city. That'd be great.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Baylor.
Councilman Baylor.
Question for the clerk. On the 14th, you did mention it could be a Zoom. Could it also just a purely call-in meeting like we're having now, or would it require a computer Zoom type of thing?
I think we can do just call-ins also. So.
Okay. Well, that would help. That would help me. So that would kind of open up my schedule.
Okay. Okay.
Probably work with whatever the group comes up with.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay, so we still haven't had any audience call-ins, so I'll go ahead and go to council comments in the order on my list here. Councilman Sherman.
I don't have any comments at this time. Thank you.
Councilman Schaefer.
Yeah, my only comment, I guess, is thanks to everyone on staff, Susan, Helen, Harmony, Leif, who helped set up that training with the Jurassic Parliament training the other day. That was a really nice refresher. And otherwise, yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Councilman Gard.
No comment.
Vice Mayor Meyer.
No comment, thanks.
Councilman Allison.
No comment from me. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for calling in, Allison, Councilman Allison. Councilman Gleason.
Just thanks to staff, and everybody have a good night.
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, and thanks staff, and I hope they don't get upset with us when we try to push these projects to maybe add to them or get them done. they're probably sitting there saying, I told you we don't have time, but I think it's our role to kind of probe and see if we can't make things happen, and if they can't, then they can't. So I appreciate their efforts and the job well done, and march on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We still don't have any public call-in, and we don't have an executive session scheduled. So is there any objection to adjourning?
To adjourn.
I hear a motion and a second. Any objection?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Sherman. We're adjourned.
Thank you all.
Good night, thank you, good meeting, guys.
Sorry.